All right, we have an absolute powerhouse lineup today. I'm super excited, and I think we'll just get stuck straight into it. So we'll ask all of you to introduce yourselves, what you do, a little bit about you, and also if you could live in any kind of game world, what would it be? So Georgia, let's start with you.
Hi. So yeah, I started French Bedroom in 2006. We've been pure play since day one. I feel like a bit of a fraud being here today because, of course, I work in the digital world, I own a digital company, but I oversee brand, marketing, warehouse, design, purchasing, all the different departments within the business. When we started, our website was a brochure, an online brochure. It was just brochureware. It wasn't a transactional site. You had to ring us to make a payment and then send us a check in the post. We were right at the kind of bleeding edge of what e-com is today. Back then, e-com, the word didn't even exist. Google existed, but there were no Google ads, not until 2008 in the UK anyway. So we relied heavily on PR, print media, word of mouth. But yeah, and even Trustpilot was started in 2007. So yeah, we didn't have any social proof, and it was very much just selling things that we thought were beautiful and the public would love, and we'd identified a gap in the market. We bootstrapped it, so we funded it ourselves, and here we are 18 years later. In terms of my games, well, I chose Snakes and Ladders because I know it's a really analog game, but over 18 years I think I've done a lot of looking out for the snakes and identifying the ladders, and we've gone through 3 recessions, we've gone through COVID, we've had our goods stuck in vessels in the Suez Canal. We're now having to deal with some dodgy Saudi ships to get goods to the UK from Vietnam. So there's been quite a fair few snakes, but there's also been some amazing ladders too. But also seeing whack-a-mole outside. I think any of you who are thinking about starting your own business, well, first of all, I urge you to do it. It's so much fun. But it is whack-a-mole every day. And it's not necessarily doing what your passion is, it's actually just solving challenges. So I would say if you love solving challenges and you love whacking moles, that's the business for you.
Love that. Alex?
So my name's Alex Black. I'm head of digital product at EasyJet Holidays. So I've been in the company for about 5.5 years. It's actually my first role in travel, and I absolutely love it. Before that, I've always been in digital, but before that I was with retail and telecoms. So I've worked for BT, Sony, and also Now TV at Sky. But also, I did an apprenticeship, and it was all focused in around leadership. So this is something that's I'm super passionate about, something that's really, really close to my heart. In terms of the game, so I'm super competitive. It's actually like a bit of a running joke in my team. Like I feel like I have to win. But no, the game I said was, so when I was a bit younger, I applied for the island, like the Bear Grylls, the island. I'm rubbish at camping, like I don't even know what I'm thinking, but I've just got this delusional self-belief that if I get on that island, I'm going to be wrestling alligators and like thriving. Like with my rose-tinted glasses on, it's going to be beach days every day, and so yeah, that's mine.
And Caroline?
Hi, lovely to be here. Caroline Harrison. I head up digital marketing at HSBC. It's the 5th biggest bank in the world. I joined 6 years ago, and they hired me to look after affiliates. And then I fast forward to, and I started off with a team of four people. And then I fast forward to today. I now look after all digital advertising for the UK bank, so across all the different business lines, the commercial bank, the retail bank, the private bank, First Direct, and also Marks & Spencer's Financial Services. I've also look after the UK website, and I've started to look after comms to existing customers. What else can I tell you?
Sounds like everything.
I wanted to be a show jumper, so I've still failed on my first one. But marketing, yeah, I love. In terms of game, I'm not a big gamer, but if I could say a TV programme, for me it'd be Quantum Leap, and I don't know if everyone's too young to know that programme, but I would love the idea that like you could start each day with a different set of clothes, a bit like Mr. Ben, you know, and do something different and just have to deal with that. And I kind of like a bit of a disaster, or a bit where, you know, the world changes and you just have to deal with it there and then. So yeah, that'd be me.
Amazing. See? Banging lineup. So let's start off talking maybe a little bit about your drive, your values, or kind of what motivates you in life and in your career. Georgia, maybe we'll start with you.
I think in my first, so I started off in PR, financial PR, corporate PR, and then changed to consumer PR, and then realised it was actually the business side of things I loved. And when I left my first job, I remember it was just outside London, my boss wrote in my leaving card, To the politest lady I've ever met, but if you want a good career, stay away from the computer. So I decided to start an online company because I just loved the challenge. I really love a challenge. I love solving problems, as I mentioned already. But I also feel that for me, what really motivates me is success and happiness. And also I really enjoy the hard work. I mean, my phrase that I often use for myself is happiness lies on the other side of hard. And you kind of don't deserve the success and happiness if you haven't put in the really hard work. So yeah, for me, I wanted to make a difference. And I wanted to make a difference to future generations and my daughter, but also to my team and to business, our sector, our industry, our female tribe, and yeah, the next generations too.
Amazing. If anyone doesn't know who Georgia is, like look up French Bedroom and like everything that she's done with the company. It's like female driven, female first. It's really, really inspirational. Alex, how about you? What's your motivator or drive?
I think I've always been pretty career driven. So when I graduated straight into the recession and I found it so difficult to get a job. And the first role I got was in a recruitment agency. To be a businesswoman, I want to have a briefcase and wear high heels. So I don't have a briefcase, but I do have my high heels. So, tick.
I love that. And how about you, Caroline?
I've never really had a plan. I'm just someone that kind of I just do what I love doing, and then generally someone's just tapped me on the shoulder and said, have you thought about this? And my instinct is always like, hell no. And then when I've slept on it, I think it's normally a good idea. But ultimately what drives me is, similar to you really, I was brought up by my mum. My parents got divorced when my mum was 9 months pregnant with my sister, and then I just watched her struggle. And so there was something that I just sort of watched that and just thought, I don't really want to have to rely on anybody else. I want to fight for myself. I want to be able to provide. And I want to be able to leave this world leaving more than I came with, I suppose. So, and the funny thing is, like now I've got, a nice house and an amazing family, but somewhere along the way you get a little bit greedy, and then the further you go, the more that you kind of want. But ultimately, I just think you spend an awful lot of time at work, so you've got to do what makes you happy. And then if you do that, you end up enjoying it more and getting a bit better at it. So I've never really had a plan. And the people that do kind of scare me a little bit, because I just think I wish I could kind of see it. But I just think you should dream big and don't underestimate what you can do, because quite often if you look back and think where you've come from, you've got no idea how that happened. You just kind of take each day as it comes. But yeah.
Yeah, I might segue off that, because I feel like a lot of people who are career driven, or you see them have amazing careers, a lot of them when they speak, it's like, yeah, and I planned this, and I had a 5-year plan, and then I had a mood board that told me what I was going to do in 10 years, and it's very proactive and planned and laid out right in front of you. And I've never been that kind of person. I've always kind of waited to see where opportunities come and kind of gone quite naturally into the next step. But is that the case for all of you? Are you planning people? Do you have different ways to navigate your career? Or
I mean, I've never had a 10-year plan at all. I've worked in corporate for quite a little while now, and obviously we love a PDP, but I don't love a PDP. I find they can be quite limiting. But I've always sort of felt like having a direction of travel rather than a set plan is the right thing to do. So that's not to say I don't have, all my goals and targets and, live and die by a to-do list kind of thing. But yeah, I think for me, I've always just tried to take the opportunity as and when it's come. So if I think back over my career, like my first ever role when I was working in Sony, I was working in an online trade marketing team, and I was looking after one online account. And there was a moment in time where lots of people left the business, lots of people went on maternity leave, and I got the opportunity to work on another account, and then another account, and then it was like, looking after quite a bit of the UK, and that helped me get a promotion to look after Europe. And so it was really just about sort of saying yes. And actually exactly the same thing happened at EasyJet too. I was started as a product owner on the airline side of the company, and my manager at the time said, there's this little project, it's the sort of side of the desk thing, it's called EasyJet Holidays, don't know if anyone kind of wants to put their hand up for it. And I was like, yeah, sure, in for a penny, in for a pound kind of thing. And it was like an absolute career highlight. It was one of the best things I've ever done. And I think there's lots of advice out there, and I think it's especially geared to women, around learning how to say no. And don't get me wrong, learning how to say no is super important, and there's times in your life where you absolutely should say no. You have to listen to your mind, your body, all those kind of things. But I would kind of be lying if I said that like saying no has kind of got me. And I love sort of saying yes and taking the opportunity, and it can obviously lead to like really intense periods of work for sure, but it's normally kind of worth the punt.
I think half the time we say no because we think we can't do all of it, but if you think that through, that's bonkers, because why just keep on doing what you already know?
For sure.
Actually, if you want to grow and you want to do something else, you're going to have to take a bit of a risk and do something that you don't know. And quite often, if somebody else has asked you that already, they already probably think you could do it. So if they think you do it, why do you not think you can do it?
Yeah.
Someone told me that once that women only go for roles when they can do 100% of the role when they apply, whereas men do it when they can do 40%. And actually, I think they're right, because then you learn a lot more and you grow. Why do we do it to ourselves? And I'm preaching like I do this myself, and I don't. So I'll watch this back and maybe listen. I don't know.
And has it been the same for you, Caroline? It sounds like opportunities arise and you kind of figure it out that way rather than having a long-term plan.
They do, and I think sometimes they arise where somebody sees something in you and thinks they could take this on, which is great. So I would advocate everybody in the room, hero other people too, and do that. I mean, people have done it to me, and I just thought I need to pass that on rather than just keep taking it for myself. But then I think sometimes opportunities come from things that you can build as well. You can take something and turn it into something very different, and quite often that is just, from my perspective, you take a step back and think, if this was my baby, my business, my money at play, would I do the same thing or would I do something slightly different? And then generally I've kind of trotted back and said, I know you asked me to do this, but I found this, and this is what I found. They've said, go with it. And then normally it's back with I need more resource or money to do it, this is what it looks like. And then it kind of snowballs into something else. And then before you know it, you've ended up with in a leadership role, which is just not what you signed up for at the beginning, but it's great, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Georgia, the last time we spoke about this, you said something around how plans can actually be a little bit dangerous sometimes.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings around plans. I think it's really important to have a plan so you've got some structure. But I'd also allow yourself to really deviate from that plan. Like, I won't ask you to put your hands up, but how many of you have a bucket list of where you want to go and what you want to do in life and what you want to experience? How about if you had like a career bucket list and you just said, my bucket list is that I want to have achieved this in my life, or I want to have been recognized for this or be accountable for that. And maybe that's enough. Because so much changes, and as you know, we've been through so much digital change in the last 10 years, so much so in retail that it's almost been like an industrial revolution for us again, but a digital revolution. And I think if I'd had a 10-year plan 10 years ago, it would be very different. And then 10 years before that, I've been doing what I do for 30 years now. And I think the important thing is to have some structure, but have a consistency in what you want to do, have a passion for what you want to do, and then you'll really enjoy it. But also be agile and allow yourself to fail along the way, because failure isn't a bad thing as long as you promise yourself you're going to learn from that failure, and then you're going to grow as a result and improve and be badass as a result of that. So do use those failures and try and use them at someone else's expense as well, not your own.
Great advice. It would be good to talk about some really practical advice. So if people in the room here are thinking about their careers and maybe changing jobs or asking for that thing that they were a bit scared to ask for, but kind of what's your really practical advice when someone's looking to take that next step in their career?
I have a friend who is like a life mentor, and she's 72, and all her fucks have flown out the window. She tells me exactly how it is. And I was having stuff with her last night, and I said, I'm going to mention you tomorrow. And she was like, you're a fucking nut. She's American, by the way. And she is amazing at just telling me how it is with life, and I really listen to her because she's been there and done that. And by the way, she's still working. And so I feel that you can learn from anyone at any stage in any generation. I mean, Steve Jobs, when he invented the first iPhone, he used children to look at how the UX worked, which is why iPhones didn't come with instructions when they were first launched, because the UX was so simple. So I think looking everywhere, everyone can teach you something. Don't just think about the C-suite, the boardroom, your colleagues, your career path. Think about what your mum went through or didn't get the opportunity to go through, and how can you make that better for this female generation. talk to your parents' friends and, you know, just people you meet in cafes. I would really urge you to do that. But the other thing I would say is that there is this little magic word called ikigai, which is the Japanese art. I've got the book here because I wanted to show you, because it's really definitely a book for you all to consider buying. It's a beautiful book as well. So ikigai is the Japanese secret to a long and happy life. But it's the idea that there is this Venn diagram, and it's something that's, if you do what you love, and if you do what you're good at, and if you do what the world needs, and if you can monetize it, then you get this central area of the Venn diagram, which is ikigai. So I think if you can do what you really love, then actually it becomes like an extension of your hobby. And working 14, 16-hour days, which you'll probably find you might have to put a few of those in along the way if you tend to start your own business, it's not actually so bad because you're doing what is your passion.
I love that book. I recommend it to everyone.
Yeah.
And I feel like I had a moment in my life where I was like, I don't know where I'm doing with my career, why am I in tech, and like a bit of a moment. And I read that and I was
Yeah.
like, now I get why I do what I do, and I get what I love, and I cannot recommend it enough.
So
Again, it's
beautifully
that
simple.
thing around direction. It just gives you direction, and then it helps you to find the right path, whatever that might be. So yeah, I love that book. Highly recommend. We don't work for the author. Alex, how about you? Practical advice.
So I think this is potentially a little bit basic, but I really do stand by it, and it's all around transferable skills. And I feel like sometimes it's kind of like career 101 and it's sort of overlooked, but I really rate it because, you know, if you're looking to take that next step in your career, but you're like, oh, I just don't have the experience doing X, Y, Z, like this is where transferable skills are like absolutely your best friend. So, you know, perhaps you want to step in and become a manager, but you don't have any managerial skills. Look at what else you can do, because there's just opportunities absolutely everywhere. Like, you know, are there junior people in your team that need mentoring? Is there someone new joining the company that you can help get onboarded? Ask your manager if they need help organising an event, because I promise you they do. But yeah, all of those kind of things, so that when you go for that job interview and you say, okay, well I can do this, this, this and this, I don't have any managerial skills, but I can do all these other things that feel like being a manager. And I promise you that with a little bit of enthusiasm and kind of like the will to kind of get on board with it, it really, really helps. And I think on the topic of interviews as well, I think there's this kind of like perception that you're there to impress them, but I really just don't buy it. Like when you're interviewing, like they're there to impress you too. Like the best interviews are absolutely two-way conversations. So I really recommend like just go in there and just like ask the difficult questions.
You ask scary questions, don't you?
I love them. I actually like, it's my favorite thing. Like ask really uncomfortable questions. Like ask them like, what are you doing to promote women in leadership? What does diversity on your board look like? What did you do for last Pride? And I'm not saying that if a company doesn't have all their shit together, like you should just bin them off. That's not what I'm saying at all. But look at how the person responds to you. Look at how
12 hours. They're not even being reviewed by humans anymore. People put them through a tool and it looks at your CV. So their computer needs to be able to read your CV. So everything from the width of the margins to the fact that it's got any typos to the fact that it can't read images. It likes things in tables, not a mixture of stuff. So and if you go online, you can find free tools so that you can put your CV through and it'll give you a score. Anything under about an 85, 90% won't get through to a human person. So first of all, I would look at, if you are applying for roles, before you do it, run it through one of those tools and update it. I did it before I reviewed it and got something like 60%, and not great. And what was I going to say? Yeah, I just thought it was mind-blowing, and the feedback was, this looks like a traditional old-fashioned CV, and I just thought, oh my God, it is. So, you've got to take the picture off and whatever, do it, but then you run it again, you update it. And the other thing, to touch on what you said about what you've delivered, in the past I would have put what I'm responsible for. It's the lazy way of writing a CV, because at the time you think, it sounds really good, this is all the stuff that I've been responsible for, but it doesn't really tell you what you can do. And I think the recruiters and the person that you're applying for a job will see the role and think, can they do that role? Yes, they can do the same one here. Actually, by looking at what you've actually delivered, it matters less about what role you're in and more about the skills that you've got. And so then you can be seen to do other jobs. And really, your CV needs to almost be framed for the job that you want, not for the job that you're currently doing. So it probably means, if I'm honest, 6-8 hours worth of work. No one wants to do that at the weekend, but if you did that, then I think then you apply and you'll come to the top, and then you're there sitting at the table. And generally people don't interview many people, you know, it might be 4 or 5 with a couple of rounds and then you're good to go. So I think that helps.
Yeah, great advice. Georgia, something you said earlier about like make those mistakes. I think you only learn when you make mistakes, so it's really important to make them. But I think it's also really important to share them, to share what you've learned, and I think it might be a nice forum to do that here. So what have been some mistakes that maybe you've made, you know, in your careers, and what did you learn, and what do you think could be maybe useful for the people in the room?
I think I'm naturally inclined to take people at face value because I like to think that I'm honest and genuine and authentic. And I guess in interactions, you'll be dealing with someone who's a salesperson who's like, oh, they're so nice, they really love us and they really love our brand, and actually they're just trying to sell your product. And it took me quite a few years to realise that they don't really like your brand, they're just selling your product. And so I think I've had to sort of slightly learn the hard way to look for ulterior motives, and it's often worked against me, not in terms of negotiations, because I'm okay with that, but in terms of realising that people might not always be, they might be the snake in, the wolf in sheep's clothing. So it's watching out for that. I also think that I have an inclination to take on too much, and that's a female trait, and we're like, don't worry, I've got this, I'll do it, because we can do anything, we really can, and so we often do. But just because we can doesn't mean to say we should have to. So because we are naturally inclined to take on a lot, we can then burn out. And I know that I did that during COVID, and I had this moment where I was like, I just don't enjoy what I do anymore. The joy has gone out of it. And you know, I own a company that designs beautiful products, and we sell amazing furniture to really nice customers all over the world, celebrities, really nice people. And actually, I'm not enjoying it. And it was because I was getting bogged down with the tax, the HR, the compliance, GDPR, all those things that, apart from Alex, most people don't want to be a businesswoman when they're 7. They don't go, I want to be an MD, they want to be something else. So actually what I wanted to do was design beautiful furniture. And in starting my own company, there were so many other things I had to do that weren't designing furniture. So I took on an MD, and that just changed everything. And she is incredible, and she can take on the leadership, management, HR, tax, etc., etc. And it means that I can do what I do, what I enjoy doing, so my joy is back. But it also means that she does it better than I did. So we've got increased performance culture, we've got retained talent. And so, yeah, holistically, everything's sort of working in union. I think I would say probably just identifying, if you're starting out a company, the biggest thing you could do is identifying your weaknesses and employ to plug those gaps.
I think that's relevant for anyone. My mantra has always been hire people that can do that thing way better than you.
Yeah.
That's the point. That's the whole point. How about you, Alex? Any mistakes that kind of spring to mind, like big learnings?
I think sometimes I've got a couple of things, but like I guess one of them is around, you know, maybe just hanging around a little bit too long. I think we talked about this before.
Mine's exactly the same.
Yeah, this sounds a little cheesy, but you know, I like this idea of like you need to be earning and learning if you're at a company. You know, ideally both. You should be earning your money and learning new skills. It has to be one, but if it's neither, you need to kind of like move on, because I just think that, you know, everyone, but especially women, we just can't necessarily afford to be loyal to these companies that maybe won't necessarily be loyal to us. But I think when I think a little bit more broadly about mistakes I've made, there's just one that always comes to mind. And you know, we were talking about like values and being nice and things like that, and I can always think of an example where I just wasn't nice. I was at an event really, really similar to this, and I was chatting to some people and I didn't know who I was talking to, and we were talking about apps and tech and things like that. And we got talking about this particular app, and I was like, oh, it's shit. And the person opposite me was like, I built it. And it was horrible. It was terrible. Everyone around me had like secondhand embarrassment. I wanted the floor to swallow me up, and I think about it late at night sometimes. Like it's one of those horrible things. But for me, it's always a lesson. There's a couple of things in there of like, first of all, you never know who you're talking to, so just. But also, I think, you know, always give feedback how you want to receive feedback. You know, like if someone had said that about something that I worked on, it would have felt terrible. So it was a very embarrassing, very painful lesson that has stuck with me.
How about you?
Mine's similar in that I think earlier in my career I stuck in some roles longer than I should have done. You know, I think it's really important to get on with whoever you report to, and they need to be a cheerleader or a biggest fan. If there's a bit of grating there or doesn't feel quite right, I would encourage you to move on, because I think it's, you know, I've stayed probably 6, 12, 18 months longer thinking I'm going to work this out and they're going to love me. It's hard to do that, and actually life is so short and precious. If they don't get you and they're not appreciative of you and they're not going to hero you, I think I'd find someone else that does. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's super true. I feel like a lot of people, if you look back at when you were doing really well in your career, it's because you had an amazing manager or cheerleader or someone that was like you said, tapping you on the shoulder, being like, you can do that.
And I think when you're starting out, I always, you know, if someone came to me and said, you're just not getting it, I'd beat myself up and think, why am I not getting it? I just, you know, you come back and try again and again. And now in hindsight, half the time I thought, no, you just weren't clear on what you asked me to do. You didn't know what you wanted, and therefore I was just trying to guess. And these days I wouldn't stand for that. But back in the day, I would have bent over backwards and walked over hot coals to try and get the answer for them, because I just, you know, you just want to please so much. But these days, yeah, I'd call it out or just not stand for it.
Good for you. I'm going to do one quick question before we go to the Q&A. So Georgia, you kind of touched on this already, but basically outside of, you know, your personal drive and things like that, where do you find inspiration? I know your mentor sounds amazing, by the way, but, you know, outside of work and outside of your bubble, where do you all find inspiration?
I mean, I suppose in business, I would definitely say Anita Roddick, who is the founder of The Body Shop. And I think she was so ahead of her time. I know she sold it and it didn't go well, and that wasn't her fault. She wasn't well. But I think she was so ahead of her time in pioneering the anti-plastic movement. And that was back in the 1980s, which is like 30 years ago.
Yeah, I love her too.
Integrity.
How about you, Caroline?
Mine was my old boss at the Times. I worked for the Times newspaper for a couple of years. An amazing company to work for. It was a bit like working at EastEnders. There was drama kicking off, you know, left, right, and centre. And I'm someone that's quite calm. So for me, I was just in my happy place. It was great. But the MD there was someone that just encouraged me to dream big. Whatever idea I would take to him, he would triple it and then say, we're doing it. And it made my knees knock, but every single time. Sometimes we didn't pull it quite off, but we double, tripled what we were expecting, what I thought I was capable of in the first place. So he just kind of implanted in me, never let money, resources stop you doing something. If you've got a good, sound business idea, you should go for it. And yeah, and it's proved to be right, so good. The only other thing I'd say is I find small nuggets of insights from wherever, whether you're watching a TV program or the conversations with kids. I've got 3 kids and they challenge me on a daily basis about what's right and wrong, so that's good. And going to events like this, I think if you can take what somebody else is doing incredibly well and take it back, and the difficulty is like translating it to your business and then finding out how you're going to use it, but if you can do that and you get the benefit from it, then great. And it's not really a stolen idea. Well, it probably is a stolen idea, but do it.
And I completely agree with you about like events like this. I think are so important. So, you know, like we met at was lucky enough to go to the CX Awards, and that's where we met. And I saw your submission for Woman of the Year, which she won, by the way, and it was incredible. But like I went away, I went away from that, and I literally told all my friends, I was like, oh my God, I met this woman last night. She was so amazing. But like genuinely, like so inspirational. But I think as well, like mentorship is really important. But I've always found the kind of process of going out and maybe getting a mentor quite difficult. And I think it's because I kind of liken it as an adult to being like, do you want to be my friend? Like it's kind of a bit, I don't know, it's like a bit orcs. But the kind of the way that I get around that and kind of what gives me inspiration is really just like looking around me, kind of similar to what you said, and looking at friends, looking at family, looking at events like this and colleagues as well, and just being like, oh, that person's got brilliant presentation skills. God, that person's so good at public speaking, or even little things like they handled conflict so well. And when you see things like that, I so recommend going up to that person and being like, I loved it when you did that. Can you tell me how to do that? Can you teach me? Because like I said, asking for a mentor is sometimes slightly awkward, and it's actually sometimes awkward for a mentor as well because they don't know quite what to do. But when you identify skills and you identify like admirable traits, it's so easy to go up to someone and be like, I loved it when you did X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Can you help me to do that? And it's a nice way of building networks and building that support.
Yeah, you're so right. And it's just flattering. Like if
For sure,
anyone
everyone
reached out
loves
to you
it.
and said, you're amazing at that thing, can you help me? Everyone's going to say yes.
Instant icebreaker.
But like you said, for that person being asked, they have something specific that they can help you with. If someone just says, I want you to be a mentor, do you have 30 minutes a week? You're kind of like, oh, well, how can I help you? Whereas if someone says, I want to work on public speaking, then I'd be like, yeah, cool, let's do it. Got loads of tips and ideas and stuff that we can share. So yeah, definitely. I just like, don't ask, don't get with mentors, I think. Sure. Just go and ask. The worst they will do is not reply, maybe. Okay, cool. I think we'll go to Q&A. Have you been asking your questions? Let's have a look. Oh my God, yes, lots of questions. Okay. We'll go through the popular ones. So how did you decide leadership was the right career path progression for you? What does leveling up and career progression opportunities look like otherwise?
I guess to answer like maybe the first bit of that question, it was never necessarily a thing where I was like, I want to go be a leader. Like it was never that. But I remember a moment where I was helping someone in my team, and there was that lovely moment where she didn't know what she was doing, and I helped her, and she got it. And then she went and did the thing and she smashed it, and I was like, I had all the good feels. I was like buzzing off that for weeks, and I was like, oh, I want to go do that more. And I think when you're really passionate about things like that, and it's something that, you know, like you were saying, like it just hits you, you're like, yeah, that's the thing. And I'm not necessarily saying that leadership is the thing, but everyone's got to find their own bit that like really speaks to them. But for me, that's something where I'm like, I've actually like really, really enjoy working with my team. I really enjoy talking to them and helping them. So for me, that's why I love doing what I do.
I don't think you have to, you can get a senior role without managing people though, and you've also got to be careful what you wish for, right? Because you train and do what you love. Like for me, that was digital marketing, and that still is what, if you chop me down the middle, that's what excites me. And then all of a sudden you find yourself managing people and you don't actually do the job that you love anymore, you're just managing people that do that. So I think you've got to be able to let go of that bit and trust others and let them do it the way that they want to do it. I've found that if anything, I've learned more from managers that managed me that I just wasn't happy in the way that we did it. I wanted to be able to have something like a clear articulation of what I was being asked to do, but then left to me on how I do it. So I pretty much manage my team exactly the same way. So this is the challenge, up to you how you do it. And I'll be totally honest, sometimes if they come back and say, this is how I'm going to do it, even if I don't agree with it, I say yes, because I want them to know I've got their backs, I trust them, and if it goes wrong, it'll come back on me, not them. But I want them to know that, you know, I've got faith in them, and more often than not, they'll come up with they're closer to the information, they come up with a better answer anyway. So, yeah, you've just got to be prepared to let go. But, yeah, I think I have to say I miss the cold face quite a lot. Yeah. It's difficult sometimes not to say, let me get in there.
Get me in there.
No, my team are more like, we don't need you, thanks.
Yeah, to be the case. Oh, I like this next one. Can we go to the next one? Maybe we'll start with you, Georgia. What is your advice with imposter syndrome?
Yeah, it's something I every day I think I'm winging it. Someone's going to find out that I'm pretty shit at this. But I think a lot of what you do, you can be taught. But the change that's happened, I'm not going on courses every month to learn about the new digital thing and the new digital thing and the new digital thing. I'm learning on the job. And it's the same with designing a new piece of furniture that I haven't designed before. I can design furniture. It's a bit like you talk about transferable skills. It's like if you can do something well, you can do anything well, as long as you believe in yourself. But then with that comes that kind of feeling of like, actually, am I doing this well? Is there a blueprint for this? Is there a playbook for this? Should I be doing this according to some guidelines? I think for me, I don't mind having imposter syndrome because I think it keeps me humble. And I quite like going to my team for advice. And I really enjoy my team skills. And I like that there's someone in the team who can do something better than me. But I do sometimes wake up in the night thinking I'm going to get found out. But I don't think you can do anything about that other than use it to your advantage of potentially being a nicer human to work with than an arrogant dickhead.
We just need to be kinder to ourselves, don't we?
Yeah.
quite often we highlight all, or if you're the same as me, you've got a list of all of the things you need to work on, but you don't think every day, nailed it with that, well done me.
Yeah.
Maybe this is where I give the arrogant dickhead answer. I don't know. I kind of hate imposter syndrome. I kind of hate it as a topic. The way I've gone about this, I just don't buy it. I don't believe it. We're either all imposters or none of us are. And maybe that's the arrogant dickhead answer.
No,
I don't know.
I'm learning from this. It's great.
But no, I sort of think we're all just put here and we're all just kind of doing our thing. So yeah, either we're all imposters, but none of us are.
Just doing our best.
Yeah.
If you actually think you haven't got the skills to do it, you could do a benchmark, you can do a qualification, and then there's certification to say you belong here and you've done it, right?
Yeah.
So when I went to university, I juggled 2 or 3 jobs on the side. So I came out with a 2-2, and I was mortified. I wanted a first. And so I've progressed all right, besides that. But I recently did an MBA, and the reason I did it was because I went into it thinking, I don't know if I'm clever enough to do this, and if I do, and what grade I can get if I don't juggle 2 or 3 other side jobs. And then the first week that I was there, the questions that other people asked, I thought, I think I'm going to be all right. And so, I built my confidence just from listening to what else is going on. And I came out with a triple distinction. So I went back to my mum and said,
Love that. All right, next question. What is your advice for switching industries into the same role but a completely new industry and company? I think, Alex, you've got a lot of experience with that.
I think, I don't want to say like transferable skills again, but it is kind of, that is the answer. I don't want to downplay what anyone does, but as I switched from retail to telecoms to holidays, we're all people, and we're all dealing with people and customers and digital, and essentially if you can understand who your customer is, I actually think that you could be slightly industry agnostic. If I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but it sort of doesn't matter.
When I worked in PR, I started doing financial PR and then corporate PR and then consumer PR, and actually you can learn about the products, but you can't learn the skill as easily, if that makes sense. So the PR was the skill, and I was just kind of promoting and giving exposure and oxygen to products, and it could have been a car, it could have been a service. At the end of the day, it was just how to get that exposure.
For sure. I actually think in some ways you can use it to your advantage. So if I think about some of the people that I've hired into my team recently, we're not necessarily going for people that just have travel industry skills, because you can really say, okay, well, the travel industry is great and cool, but also have you looked at retail? Have you looked at clothing brands? You can bring in all this new experience and use that as your strength and say, I can bring you something new and fresh. So it's not necessarily a negative to come into a completely new role, into a completely new industry. You can actually really use it to your advantage. It's all about the story that you tell the person that you're trying to get hired from.
I can't help, I'm just neck deep in financial services. I think it's tough because if you go to a recruitment person, they tend to want to just place you in the easiest role, and that's in the same. So yeah, if anybody's got any advice there.
I suppose I'd just add one thing from an employer's point of view. When we employ people who are nice first and then skilled second, because you can teach skills, but you can't teach someone to be nice. You can't change someone's personality, but you can change their skill set. So as long as you show up with the right values and morals, and you show that you are a nice person, then skills are moldable and teachable.
I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. And this is a really good, tricky question, which I think we should talk about. Do you have any recommendations on how to avoid being paid less than male colleagues?
Ask for more. You don't ask, you don't get. I was saying about ask the difficult questions. You have to ask. And if just because there's a banding of how much you can be paid on the job spec, that doesn't mean that's all that's there. So I would always recommend challenging.
I asked a male colleague at work who was really good at negotiating how he did it, and he said the last time someone offered him a role, my reaction's like Labrador, oh my God, that's amazing, yes please. He said, That's great. Can I just go away and think about it over the weekend and discuss it with my partner? It's obviously a big change, and come back to you on Monday. And then came back on the Monday with I've had a serious think about this. I'm really excited about the role, but these are all the things that need to be true for me to accept this role. I've done the research on what the going rate is from the market, the external market, in terms of the pay. I want some more time to spend with my family, so I'd like to work condensed hours, yada, 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 yada. And so he got almost all that I think that he asked for, and his boss turned around in the end and just said, God, I wish I negotiated like you did. And so I just thought, next time I'm going to be ready. I'm not going to just say, yes, thank you very much, you sign. You almost just take a step back and think about it, and then go back with a bit of a prep list.
Yeah, always worth counter-offering, like for sure, always.
Yeah.
I just say start your own company. Sorry, it's important.
Easy as that.
Yeah, let's have a side hustle and then see how it goes. I was working in PR when I started French Bedroom, and my accountant said that PR was my bread and butter and French Bedroom was my jam. And I remember after 1 year, she was like, okay, I think your jam is now your bread and butter. So having a side hustle, like we said earlier, you girls can do anything. We're amazing. So there's nothing to stop you just trying something on the side, but keeping someone else paying your salary at 9 to 5. And then what you do 5 to 9 is your lookout. Give it a go.
Amazing. Right, we are on the hour, but I think this next question is a really nice closing question for us to end on. So thank you, Jamie. So if you could go back in time, what advice would you give to a younger version of yourself?
I've got a thing that I do that I reflect forward, and it's really weird. So I look at myself age 80 and I think, what would I like to tell my grandchildren that I did and I achieved? And that for me is my driver of, like, if I haven't done that yet, then I talked about it earlier, but I think I'm trying to use my older self now to give myself now advice, because there's a load of things I could have said to my younger self and I probably wouldn't have listened. But yeah, I'm rather than reflecting back as to what I would have said, I'm actually using what I would. I'm struggling with my English future tenses, but you know what I mean. Like, what would your 80-year-old say to you now? Is kind of, that's how I use it. Yeah.
Maybe sounds a little bit corny, but I think just honestly just like believing in myself a little bit more. I remember when I left a company on my leaving do once, this guy came up to me and he had a few too many to drink, but he said, oh, you would have done so much better here if you'd have been less nice. And it really shook me, and I was a bit like, maybe I need to be more of an arsehole day to day. I don't know. But yeah, and I've sort of reflected on it since, and actually, just like believe in yourself and, be authentic to who you are, because it won't come across well if you just put on this persona,
I think I'd just say don't sweat the small stuff. I just think we beat ourselves up too much, and actually just take joys from the stuff that you've done. I don't know if you've ever, I write notepads, what's going on each week and what to do. And quite often it's a bit like writing a shopping list when you go shopping. I don't need the shopping list. Once I've written it down, it's kind of in there, but I've looked back in those books and you write such nonsense, basic stuff that you think I've come a long way since then. So I think we just need to celebrate the stuff we're good at and don't sweat the small stuff and just enjoy. And the minute you don't, get out.
Oh, I don't want this to end. This was so good. Thank you all so much, and I hope you've all enjoyed it. This has been one of my favourite sessions. It's just so nice to have quite an open conversation with some incredible women. I've learnt a lot. But yeah, that's an end of our content for today. So can we just give a massive round of applause to